I know, right?
So you guys, and I talk about this sometimes, you guys mentioned the different schooling that I've gone through. So Ben has gone through, he got his bachelor's degree, which essentially is a 4-year college degree, right? That means that you do all your undergraduate and then you do all of your general education and then you focus on your major, whatever that may be. In our case, it was art. He did that for a couple of years, so 4 years of college. And then he went back and did you get your master's at Sac State first?
No.
Okay. So then he got his MFA, which is a special degree. He got his Master of Fine Arts degree at UC Davis, which is a big deal. So that's essentially another 2 years. And then now he's doing his California credential, which they require of all people to teach in California. So he's kind of like on his 7th, 8th year of college. This is just the way it is for us. So
I think I'm kind of addicted to education because I want to like live in it and teach it. So I put this presentation together because I know you guys, while you're the advanced group, you're still relatively new to painting and drawing. And I'm hoping that this will make sense. Maybe put some things into perspective that you might be struggling with. Now, if anything in this presentation Mr. Carter's gone over with you, let me know and I will simply gloss over it and move on because this is for your benefit. And you can also interrupt me at any time you have questions or just comments. I'm totally relaxed about it. So John Berger's book I just purchased. He's a prolific artist and painter, but he's also a prolific writer. And so I really like this quote. It's on the front page. It's, "Seeing comes before words. The child looks and recognizes before it can speak." And that's really what you guys are doing now that you're learning how to draw and paint. You're relearning how to see and investigate and scrutinize what it is that you're looking at, whether that's mixing colors or getting the perspective right or just the facial feature, because you guys are doing portraits right now. So in this, for the objectives for this, we're going to go over some color theory, some of the chemistry of art that I found fascinating. I have a short video of color mixing that might help you guys. Discuss the elements of art and principles of design. We'll go over those key terms pretty quickly. And then I have 2 artists that I want to showcase for you, which is Joseph Albers and John Singer Sargent. So color theory, we have the primary, we have our secondary and tertiary colors. We have complementary and analogous colors. And then we have tints, tones, and shades, which actually aren't colors, but it's adding or applying black and white to your color to make values. So as you guys are familiar, you have your primary colors, your red and blue and yellow. And if you mix those, meaning like if you mix your red and blue, you are supposed to get purple. I know you guys have probably tried with your ultramarine and cadmium red, and maybe you guys are getting like a gross brown. I don't know if you've had that experience yet, but mixing purple is very difficult. But allegedly, if you do that, that's what you would get. If you mix your blue and yellow, you get green. So that's what you would get for your secondary colors. So red and blue makes purple, and so forth. Tertiary colors, I don't want to say this, it's when you get your blue-green, yellow-green, blue-violet. So essentially, you're mixing the secondary with the primary, and that's your tertiary colors. You're probably not going to need to memorize that, and that's okay. Hopefully you're not tested on it too much. Maybe if you take a beginning course in college, but. So, am I going too fast, by the way? No, okay.
No,
So
but I suck because I could just realize I just saw that whole wheel and I thought, well, I just gave him a big old trough. That's basically that. So
yeah.
you can thank me and then also be mad at me when you're struggling in
Hey,
college class.
just be grateful. Just wait. When you guys go to college and you have to take like the introduction to art class, you're going to have to paint your own color wheel. And it's a really tedious activity. But it's beneficial to know what colors you can make with your palette of paints.
You guys, if you take your first college course, they start asking you to mix colors, and you say, "Where's the trough?" Just tell them you're from Vista Del Lago, Rio, or something like that.
Yeah. All right. So I think some of the most important colors on your color wheel are the complements because of the benefits for your painting. So red, green, blue, orange, and yellow, violet, meaning that they are across from each other on the color wheel. When you guys mix a red and green together, you get a neutralized value, and it's going to make a more harmonious painting. Lucien Freud isn't in this lecture, but he's one of my favorites, and he paints with a lot of neutralized complements. Analogous simply mean that they are next to each other on the painting, and that's the more cohesive subtleties of the blues and the reds and so forth. Okay. Tints, tones, and shades. I threw this in there even though they aren't colors because you guys are working with them. It is when you take a color and you add black or white or gray to it and you make a value of it. So you have your tints, which is when you add white, tones, which is probably when you add your grays, shades is when you add your blacks. You can also make these grayscales using a color and adding white to it. So, probably familiar with this. Okay, I watched a really cool 40-minute video. I thought it was really cool. Hopefully the students did too, on the chemistry of making paints. So I'm just gonna give you a quick rundown of what I learned. You have the pigment, which is this blue, for example, and then you have the medium. And mixed together makes your paint. So that tempera acrylic you guys are working with, that would be the pigment, and then the tempera medium. Mix it together, that's how you get their paint. So you're gonna find when you guys, and oh, let me mention that it's true for any art medium you work with, whether it's colored pencils, washes, oil paints, so forth. It's the same concept of a pigment and a medium. So when you guys go to your art store, and maybe you go to the acrylic aisle, you're gonna notice that it says Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, Series 4. Series 1 is like your titanium whites, it's the cheapest. Series 4, like, I think it's called Red Mono Lake, or something like that, super expensive. And you're going, why is this so expensive? It's because the cost of making that pigment, some pigments are made with beetles, some pigments are made with roots. In the olden days, they used to make yellow ochre with cow urine, or human urine. In the really old days, there was a paint made out of mummified bodies, which I did not know until I watched that video. So I thought it was fascinating. So that's why I tend to go with the cheaper paints, because they're, you know, affordable. Okay, we're gonna watch a quick 4-minute video on mixing color. It's not my video, I took it off YouTube. But the reason why is when I observed your class, I found that there was a little bit of hesitation in mixing colors, and it's amazing how this artist is able to do so using his palette knife and just being so efficient at it. So I'm hoping, well, I hope there's sound too. I didn't even check that. We're gonna find out. Is there sound? I can fix it fast. Okay. I should have tested that.
I meant to just pause it, sorry.
It's all right. Awesome, thank you. All right, so this guy, his objective. Oh, that's not the.
I think I just switched.
Oh, just switch videos? Okay, there we go. So this guy's objective, he has a yellow, a red, and a blue. And his objective is to make this orangish color. So in this 4-minute video, he's gonna do so with these 3 colors.
So when you look at the colour wheel, you've got to try and see which colour in the colour wheel is closest to that colour. So for this one, well, there's a yellowy orange, so I'm going to start with the yellow. So we'll just grab a bit of the yellow. And then I start to analyse to see, okay, which way is it now going to go? Well, it's obviously going to go towards orange here. When I hold that next to it, it's way too bright. So in terms of getting its hue, initially, that's the first thing we're looking to. I'm going to add a little bit more red to it. So when you're mixing colours, you only need to do a little bit. Yellow isn't very strong in terms of its tinting strength, whereas reds and the blues are a lot stronger. So we'll just start to mix that in together. And I can hold it up, and then you look at the value of it and how light or how dark. Well, this is still a lot lighter than this colour here we're after. So I can still add a little bit more of the red to it, because red is darker in value than the yellow. If you took a black and white picture of these 3, you'd see that would be, this one, red would be a lot darker. Okay, and when I'm looking at that, I'm squinting my eyes. I'm trying to get it so that it isn't like a jump. When you hold it over it, you squint your eyes at it. You try and get so that this and this, merging together so they're just one. Now, I know that it's not the ideal value yet. It's not the ideal toast. It's still a bit too light, but it's a lot closer than where we were to start with, just with this yellow. So now I look at the intensity, the saturation of it, and I can see, okay, this is still way too bright. So what I'm going to do is add a bit of its complement, the blue, to it. So again, I'm just going to add a tiny amount. See how it starts to go in and it's green. You've got to be brave and kind of keep on mixing. Okay, and now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, it's still a bit too, it's a bit too greeny in this. So I'm going to use a bit more of the red. Okay, and that's looking pretty close. Now, when you are checking colours, it's always worth, putting a little a kind of swatch next to it. I usually do this on a piece of scrap paper. And then what happens with acrylics is it dries off, it dries darker. So actually when I look at these next to each other, I can see that that's going to dry a little bit too dark. It needs a little bit more of the yellow. So you can just grab a bit more yellow. You notice how I grabbed a lot more of the yellow than I did of the blue to lighten it, because the yellow isn't as strong. Okay, that's looking pretty good. This is Will Kemp from Will Kemp Art School.
All right. So that's why there's benefits to working with a palette knife instead of dabbing with your brush. I know the brush is quick and oh no, was that my YouTube? Was that the YouTube?
I was like, whoa, you pumped this up all
I
of a
know,
sudden.
I really. Yay. All right.
Mixing colors fun. Sorry, man.
It's all good. That was mine. I should have known YouTube would come at me like that. So let's go over a couple not so fun areas, but I feel like they should be discussed, and you will discuss them whether you go really any visual art world, not just in fine art, but in design, fashion. You're going to go over the elements of art and principles of design. I intentionally just left them at words so that you guys probably know what they mean, but maybe is just, I don't know. Let's just try. So we have our line, which can be anything that's, it can be abrupt or subtle. You guys know what a line is. Just say yes or no. Yes? Okay, good. Space, negative and positive. What's the difference between negative and positive space on a painting? Anyone?
Negative is blank space.
Yeah, it can be kind of in the background. It can be good. They can actually make shapes in the background, but they're not your typical square or circle, but they need to be addressed. So like the negative space compared to the
Guys,
positive space.
on Katie's painting up here, which part is the negative space as of now? Okay.
All right. So shape and form. I had to look this up because I thought they were synonymous. Shape refers to two-dimensional. Forms typically refer to more sculptural, three-dimensional. Honestly, a lot of this language you're going to find, we kind of find them all synonymous though. Color and value. So we identified color as the colors on the color wheel. Values would be tints and tones of those colors. Is that making sense? Okay. And then texture is a word that I really don't like, but it's used because I find that everything has a texture. But so if you looked at an artist like Joan Brown, they have a piece of hers at the Crocker. If you walked up to the painting and looked at it from a side, you would see at least 2 inches of paint in places smeared on there. So some paintings, like Van Gogh gets often talked about being impasto. Some paintings are very thick and coarse, and others are more fine and lightly applied. Everything good so far? Good. Principles design. these words might help your vocabulary when describing something you're looking at. So we have something that's like unity, to unify a space. It can be many of these. Many of these elements in the elements of art can be applied to the principles of design. So unity, we can unify through line, space, form, color, value, texture. Same goes for variety. You can have a variety of different elements of art. So we have emphasis as well, which might be like you guys are doing a portrait. That's going to be the emphasis of the painting. Rhythm and movement, pretty self-explanatory. Any of these words not making sense so far? Balance, a visual balance is usually what they mean. I suppose a sculpture could have balance in its own physical, but visual balance, an artist can choose to make their piece balanced or unbalanced. And then pattern and proportion is really important. You guys are learning about that now as you grid out your paintings and finding the right composition. Okay, so let me get into more of the fun stuff. I think it's fun. So we're gonna learn about Joseph Albers and John Singer Sargent. Are you guys familiar with either of these artists so far? Anyone? Maybe? No? Okay. Well, good. Joseph Albers, he was born in Germany in 1888. You will see his works if you go to the San Francisco MoMA, New York MoMA, probably a lot in LACMA. So a lot of museums in the United States will have his work. And you'll know it immediately because it will be a square of color instead of a square of color instead of a square of color. And that's the gist of it. So he's actually very influential because of his teachings. So he immigrated into the United States in 1933. And why I put that in there that was significant is because he escaped Nazi Germany. And many artists, so as you guys know about like Albert Einstein's heritage coming to the United States, the US also adopted many prolific artists like Marcel Duchamp for Dada movement, and many of the Impressionists and the abstract expressionists. So that's why New York became such a big art hub, because of World War II. So his Homage to the Square series, he did over 1,000 of these, I learned. And it really deals with color and spatial relationships, and I put together a little game we can play to deal with that. But just for an example, Albers taught at, oh gosh, what's it called? Bauhaus? Do you guys know about that one in Germany? Okay. When he came to the United States, he taught at Black Mountain College, which I highly recommend you guys all look up on your own time. Black Mountain College in North Carolina. I'm just gonna make a general statement that just about anyone who went there or taught there is in the museums now. That's probably not true, but that's just the way I look at it. And then he also taught at Yale University, so the dude, he's done a lot of writing. Okay, so we're gonna play a little game. How this game's gonna work is we're gonna look at these type of squares, and then you guys are gonna tell me if they're the same color or a different color, okay? So, first one up. Are these kind of brown colors, yellow ochre colors, the same or different? Visually, what do you think they are? Different? They look different. Your cognition is telling you they're the same because you guys know the game. So yes, I went ahead and cropped it, and there they are, the same, but look how differently they behave. Anyone want to take a guess why they behave differently? Yes?
Because
Hand.
of the background. The background on the yellow has a different value or
Yeah.
intensity than the one in the purple. So it makes the yellow over in the middle look different.
They behave differently next to different colors. And there's going to be a moral to that story as we go along. So, next one up. Same or different, these browns. But they look incredibly different. You can squint your eyes, and you can see that this one recedes. The one next to the yellow recedes because it is darker. This one comes forward because it is, well, yeah, I'd say that one comes forward. I squint my eyes. Same with the green. This one certainly is much more prominent. This one kind of becomes more subdued next to the blue. Probably because they're analogous colors. The blue and the green.
I love, can we go back?
Yeah.
Sorry. I love playing around with those relationships, and a lot of times we've talked about how, not everyone's gonna always agree. Usually like 95% of the people in a room will feel the same way. Do you guys, let's look at the ones on the right. I'm just kind of curious. Do you guys agree that the one on the bottom, does it feel like, raise your hand if it feels like it's the neutral is floating above the blue. Raise your hand if you feel like it's behind, sinking behind. Yeah, so anyways, I don't know, I just love that, how like they have those relationships and it's not always crystal clear, you're not always gonna get 100% of the people that like agree on that, but I love how certain things sink back and other things move forward. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love that conversation. So this one, I don't think this is an Albers. I probably just stole this off Pinterest or something. But what I liked about it was that the X's merge so that it's the same color, but visually they behave differently. And they're all probably in the same family of colors. I'm guessing they're all variations of green. So, all right. And that's Joseph Albers. So now we're going to John Singer Sargent, one of my favorites. Doing this research, I learned that he was not an American. I thought he was. He was actually the son of Americans, but he was born in Florence, Italy. He ended up moving to England. He was trained in Paris, and he ended up moving to England. And I should also mention that he's part of this Impressionism movement. You guys are going to learn about Impressionisms Impressionist artists. You know, you get the Van Goghs, Monet, Manet, Caillebotte, and so forth. All right. So this, I included this just for fun because it was such a controversial painting. Does it look that controversial today? No. It's just a beautiful painting of a woman. And there is a history behind it, but I just want to point out that her sleeve initially was draped on her arm. And that was a big taboo. So he put it back up on her shoulder. But this woman actually has a history, and I just want to quickly go over it with you. This is Madame Pierre. I can't pronounce the last name. She was known in Paris for her artful appearance. I should also mention, looking at it, she would, and many women would make their skin whiter with makeup because that was an attractive quality. So Sargent hoped to enhance his reputation by painting and exhibiting her portrait, working without a commission, but with his sitter's complicity. He emphasized her darling personal style, showing the right strap of her gown slipping from her shoulder. So because of the negative feedback he received from this, he left Paris and moved to London. And that's where he spent the rest of his life. But that's Madame X. And she was a prominent figure in the community. People there knew who she was. Okay. So knowing what we've learned about Albers and just color theory in general, what I want to get at here is identifying values in this painting and where else they might be used, and the fact that they might be the exact same color, but they behave differently because they're placed elsewhere. So he did a number of paintings with these children, but let's just take a moment and look at the oranges, these intense oranges, and you're gonna find, I don't know how well you can see it, but those oranges might end up in the flowers, in her gown. Do you guys see that at all? So as you're working on your portraits, if you guys mix a color, where else in that painting might that color end up? It might not end up just on the figure, but in the background. So as you have that paint on your palette, be aware of that. And one more from Sargent. This one,
Can we go back?
yeah.
Do you guys like this painting here?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. It's just mesmerizing. And I don't remember how many days, but I just remember that he painted this painting at twilight, and he only had a very short window, like maybe half an hour. So he took a long, he's a fast painter, right? He does incredible detail in the faces and the focal points, depending on the commission, right? Everyone wants to know who it looks like, that's my daughter, this is my wife, etc. But in any case, he kept returning to these models every night, every evening, because he has such a short window, because he really wanted to capture the essence of, that 20 minutes right before sundown. But he's one of those, this guy, Sargent is like a god at the Academy or University of San Francisco, people like that, because you can call him an impressionist, but really, we talk a lot about this, where, he does hyper-realism where he wants to, and in the other places, it's just like really loose and aggressive, but it gives this like sort of movement in this sense that it brings life to the painting. We talk about this, most photographs, most of them, they don't feel real. They represent real, but you're never like, ooh, it's real. They're just kind of dead. And anyways, he's the man, like when you stand in front of these large paintings, they just like, they have a pulse, they really move. Anyway, sorry.
No, I love
I'm
it.
so glad you're showing this today.
Yeah, I love it. I was so excited I got to see one of his works at the Brooklyn Museum. This painting, by the way, is at the Tate Modern in London. So if you guys ever make it out that way, you can see it in person. Something else about Sargent, which is really wonderful, there's a lot of art books you can purchase. He traveled the world. The book that I have of him is mostly his portraits when he was in North Africa and Egypt, but he also came back to the United States, and you guys are in portraits, so he's someone to look at. Watercolors as well, if you guys like that medium. So this is another painting. I like the simplicity of the colors, and I thought that just for this conversation they'd make sense. So some things that I detected, this kind of deep receding value, whether it's kind of a deep purple or brown black, is probably the same color in her hair. And because, as Mr. Carter mentioned, he worked quickly. And also something we know is they had to mix their own paints. So maybe they didn't have such an arsenal of paints as if we went to the art store and went shopping. He probably may even tinted this and applied it in the garment in some places. Maybe even this field is from the same value. I would say some of these colors in the field are right here underneath the sleeve. So, and with that, I think that's everything. Any questions or comments? Was it helpful?
Yes.
Yes. Do you feel more confident mixing paint now? Good. That's all I got, Jeff.
Yeah, really cool. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me hang out.
You guys, why don't we, let's go ahead and